Hello, Miami Beach. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the Byron Carlyle Theater. I know that most of you who've grown up or been in Miami Beach or live in the North Beach section know that it is a theater located on 71st Street that has been closed for the past couple of years. But that theater was built in 1968 by Matheson, an architect named Matheson. Many people in the community love the Byron Carlyle Theater. And recently, over the past couple of years, the Byron Carlyle Theater was extremely controversial because a developer wanted to purchase it and put uh, small micro units or some sort of housing in the place where the theater is. Well, in March of this past year, the community prevailed. Four of the commissioners sided with members of the community, an organization called No Snob. What is that? I'm not sure what that acronym stands for, but the activists of North Beach ran a campaign and they were able to save the Byron Carlyle Theater. But there is something very disturbing happening right now because once you save the theater, if you don't do anything with the theater, then what's the point of saving it in the first place? So I have with me today Miami Beach Commissioner Mark Samuelian, who is going to explain to us why we need people to listen to this podcast and possibly send emails to the commission or come to a meeting on Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. Commissioner Samuelian, are you out there?
I am here, and thank you, Kristen and team, for the invitation. I would never turn down an opportunity from anyone to talk about the Byron Carlyle. It's so important. If you want, I'll just dive in with the situation we've got. This is a property been in city hands almost 20 years. It has been uninhabitable now, and one of my colleagues refers to it as condemned for the last 3 years. When we rejected that RFP that you mentioned several months ago, there was a strong commitment by the Miami Beach Commission that we would take action. But I'm disappointed. So far, we haven't. And on Thursday, I am convinced that with the will of our community working together, we absolutely should and will.
I was very disturbed, Mark, when we won that hearing on the Byron Carlyle Theater, and I would like to thank you, Commissioner Michael Gongora, Commissioner Mickey Steinberg, and Stephen Miner for listening to the community that came forward and said, save our community theater. The fact of the matter is there aren't enough small, kitschy theaters out there, and people really love the O Cinema that was operating in the theater. Not everybody wants to get dressed up and go into a multi-level parking for some, huge theater experience. So when it closed in 2019, people were very upset. And I do think that the closing was purposeful. And I do believe now that there is no money in Miami Beach's budget so that this will come up again. And I'm very, very concerned. And I will be attending the hearing on Thursday. Tell us a little bit about what you need from people to come forward who want to see the Byron Carlyle renovated and what your proposal is all about.
Thank you for that. And I'm glad you mentioned the budget because Friday is actually the final budget hearing. The budget that Miami Beach is about to approve, including its operating and capital budget, is $744 million.
That's a lot of money, and that's including capital improvements.
Correct. That's operating and capital. But what's really disappointing, so far there are $0 for the Byron Carlyle. Here's what I'm proposing, and here's how people can help. What I'm proposing is an allocation for a community-driven conceptual design. A lot of people have a lot of ideas of what should happen at the Byron Carlyle, and I'm open to all those ideas. I want to hear the best thinking that our community brings. But right now, there's no process to move any of those ideas forward. And when I asked the city administration, what's plan B if we don't proceed with this proposal that they helped me craft, there is none. And so we need it. Thursday is really make or break for the Byron Carlyle. I couldn't feel more strongly. I worry that this building, which has been deemed as uninhabitable, may at some point, sooner rather than later, be demolished. And that's not a decision that the city should allow to be forced on it. Now, you
You
asked a
had
specific.
mentioned that there's an unsafe structure. So was it the county that came in and put an unsafe structure notice or something on the Byron
Well,
Carlyle? Explain
the
that.
county, yeah, the county has been involved in it, and our building department has. And basically, they said it's just at this point not safe. The building is dark. That's just a problem. How can we leave a city asset in disrepair? How can we do this to Miami Beach residents in North Beach and to leave that place unactivated? I've heard reports of homeless people, people who perhaps are just using that space now. But think about the businesses up there. Think about the residents. They deserve more. I want to get back to one thing you said.
I think it's purposeful. I think that the Byron Carlyle has been left out of the budget on purpose. I know that you're a member of the Miami Beach Finance Committee, and I'm sure that you put that item on the agenda. So when you put the Byron Carlyle on the agenda, now we decided that we have saved the Byron Carlyle. There was a huge amount of press. There was a lot of activists who were very happy to have won this battle and save our community theater. What happened when you put it on the finance agenda?
Well, you're absolutely right. I certainly did put it on the agenda, as did others. Unfortunately, as recently as Friday, I was outvoted by two of my colleagues who voted against it, and I respect their opinion. I just disagree. I don't think we can spend $744 million and not have something for the Byron Carlyle. I have been waiting for this moment. This is the moment for the Byron Carlyle. It is the moment for residents to say enough is enough. You can't leave this property like it is. And I sure hope residents, their voices are going to be heard on Thursday.
What's unbelievable to me is that I know that your colleagues on the finance committee did not want to save the Byron Carlyle, did not vote to save the Byron Carlyle. But when you see that a majority of your colleagues and the community would really like to see this asset restored and opened as soon as possible, I find it unbelievable that they wouldn't allocate anything. How much money are you proposing that we need right now so that we can at least come up with a conceptual plan for what we're going to do with Byron Carlyle? By the way, I think that the city of Miami Beach did some estimates and said it was going to be $15 to $20 million to restore the Byron Carlyle. I think that that's hogwash. And I'm hoping that in the future, we can get another set of assessments because, Mark, apart from fixing the bathrooms downstairs and remediating some of the mold, I mean, having it closed for 2 years has made it much worse. But I guarantee you that theater for $1 million, let's say that we're just going to get it up and running while we're waiting for conceptual plans and raising money for it. You don't think that with $1 million, we can remediate the mold, fix the flooding in the bathrooms, and just open it up? Because that's what they're going to say. They're going to say, hey, this is taking too long. This is too expensive. There's no money for the Byron Carlyle. How do we get around that?
Sure. Well, I would like the numbers to be as reasonable and as low as possible to get the job done, to provide this state-of-the-art cultural center that Miami Beach and North Beach deserves. My request in the context of a $744 million budget is really very modest in nature. It's up to $400,000. And I think having that conceptual design will inform the administration, will inform future estimates. If there's a way to do it less expensive, I'm all for that.
So you would like to see the Byron Carlyle Theater transformed into a world-class cultural center and not just like another O Cinema or little kitschy theater.
Absolutely. Well, I think that it should be, as I mentioned, a state-of-the-art center. I think we can have, a whole range of cultural activities. I've actually had a group already approach me to perhaps, in addition to live performances or theater and movies, maybe that there would be some historical artifacts, almost a quasi-museum for Miami Beach. I've had a group come forward and offer to provide those elements for free. But what I want isn't really that important. Here's what's important: what the community wants. That's what's critical. And that's the voice that's not being heard. Because I'll tell you this, Kristen, I don't believe the community would say the city should allow a property to be in disrepair. I don't think the community should say that you would have this facility after O Cinema left for 3 years and leave it vacant. I don't think the community would say several months after, by a strong majority, I believe it was actually more than 4 votes, after a strong majority rejected the RFP, I don't think they would say that doing nothing is the right course of action. So with all that said, the moment is now, and I want to make sure I address one thing you said, which is so critical. People need to be heard. Let me be specific. They should email or contact their elected officials. They should post on social media. The meeting starts at 4. I've been told they'll be heard as part of the budget at 5, and public comment must be accepted during the budget. We need to hear from every single person that wants to be heard. You can come in person to City Hall or raise your hand on Zoom and just say, it's really simple. Doing nothing's not an alternative. Fund this community-driven conceptual design. Let's make it happen as part of this budget. I certainly will do everything in my power to make it happen.
I definitely think you're going to have the votes, because you're right. You did get 5 votes. I believe Mayor Gelber also supported the Byron Carlyle. So if they voted to save it and then they vote against funding any conceptual plan for it, that makes no sense. So I do think that you will have the funding to move forward. And I do think that it is it's been tagged by the county, and I think that they would like to see nothing done, so that in a year from now, the same developer can come back. He is extremely persistent, this one gentleman, and try to bid for the Byron Carlyle again. I don't know if that property is in between a couple of other properties that they own, or why it's so valuable. Talking about abandoned properties, it was very interesting. I sent out an email yesterday on the Deauville, and I would like to thank the Miami Design Preservation League for sending me a bunch of beautiful historical pictures that I included in the email. And the Deauville is also abandoned. Now, the Deauville is not city owned, obviously, but it is another example of a property that is at this point blighted and being neglected, probably on purpose, so that it can be demolished. And it's you have a group of people that say it's disgusting, just demolish it and tear it down. And then you have a lot of people who recognize it as a historic resource. The Deauville Hotel is where the Beatles taped their second U.S. performance on the Ed Sullivan Show. JFK gave a speech at the Deauville Hotel. Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and probably Elvis Presley. The Deauville was where they used to come and do these shows. So what I don't understand is it further down in the historic district, when you look at a property like the Satai, or what they're doing with the Amman Hotel and all of these other historic oceanfront hotels, we are giving them height and added FAR in some cases, so that they can make a project work, so that they can keep the historic hotel and the cons and try to, within a cultural context, make these older properties work. But for some reason, a lot of people seem to think that the Deauville doesn't deserve that type of historic appreciation. And I would love to see, and I know that I'm giving you my perspective of what everybody's told me, Mark, as if we're having a casual conversation. I would love to see at this point, because the owners have neglected it. The city has levied millions of dollars of fines, and it's currently in litigation. I would love to see if the city could possibly force a sale, force the owners of the Deauville to sell it.
Well, I'd just like to respond briefly. I, too, would like to see action at the Deauville. I'm terribly frustrated by what's going on. I know our city attorney's office has been pursuing it. Frankly, I'd like to see more progress faster. It's a travesty to see that's happening in the building. But it's not just about that building, which you rightfully pointed out is in private hands, a little different than the Byron. But it's not just a travesty for that building. It's a travesty for that community. It's dark. It becomes less safe. There's less activation for residents and the businesses, and sort of bringing it all together. That Deauville situation really is terribly concerning, and I'm going to continue to fight to make sure that we have progress. But, that is in private hands. let's not compound the problem by what we're doing with our own property at the Byron Carlyle. Let's at least do what is 100% controllable. And that's what I intend to argue for. And I believe with the will and the support of our community, we can get it done Thursday.
Thank you for following up on this, because sometimes activists will run a campaign and win a battle, and then afterward, what are you going to do? What's going to happen? Kind of like with the Marina campaign and Save Monty's. Could the Marina use some upgrades? Absolutely. Has anybody circled back? And I know that the city doesn't own the Marina, but would it be great to figure out what kind of upgrades could take place at the Marina if they were to go to a referendum? Absolutely. So I'm glad that you didn't just vote to save the Byron Carlyle, that you're dedicating yourself to making sure that it's renovated and operable. The sad part about this, Mark, is that in the interim of all of this, how long do you think it's going to take us to get this done?
Well, what I'm really focused on
money now.
What I'm focused on is that we have money in the budget so that the process can begin. Imagine if we can't get this done on Thursday, how long? And it's been way too long. I'm terribly impatient about what's happening. We need progress. North Beach deserves it. We're going to make it happen on Thursday. And I just invite anyone who has any questions about anything I've said to reach out to me directly. Anyone else who wants to hear my views on that, I am happy to share it.
So Thursday, thank you, Mark. Thank you for the dedication and for running this mini campaign. I see your postings on social media. I'm actually going to circulate this video as much as I possibly can to raise awareness. So the meeting is Thursday at 4 p.m. You can email and write your commissioners prior. If you know one of the commissioners, pick up the phone and give them a call and tell them how important it is to you. If you have memories and want to see the Byron Carlyle renovated, because to do nothing is to really condemn it to demolition, and nobody wants to see that happen. We have enough properties around North Beach that are vacant and decaying, and it's very sad to see it happen. Let's push forward and make this a tremendous cultural center. So thank you, Mark, for coming on the show, and
thank you for the invitation.
I will be there on Thursday, and I hope you get the funding that you need to.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mark. I'm not done. I am absolutely not done. I'm going to continue. Thanks, Mark. Okay. I wanted to just spend the last few minutes of this podcast, because it's 1:52, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what is on this upcoming Miami Beach ballot. We have these elections and off election years, and nobody really talks about when the election is. Early voting is starting on October 18th, and then election day is on November 2nd. And in addition to all of the candidates, and I am not going to be talking about those races, I am going to be, however, be talking about what you can find on this ballot, because not enough people have there's several, I believe 4 referendum questions. So I just wanted to go over them with you. The first one is amending the lease of city property at the Holocaust Memorial site. The Holocaust Memorial at Dade Boulevard in Meridian is a city land lease to the greater. Okay, so it's a land lease that the city of Miami Beach has with the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, and that land lease is until 2099. Shall city at no cost to city extend this lease for 21 additional years and expand the lease premises to include adjacent 12,000 square feet for city parking lot. So what this is the Jewish Federation that owns the lease for the Holocaust Memorial. They would like an additional parking 7,000 square. They're going to get 12,000 square foot city parking lot, and they are going to be building, operating, and maintaining a 7,000 square foot learning center promoting tolerance and human rights. I am voting yes on this. I can't see anybody who would be voting no on this. We love the Jewish Federation, and the Holocaust Memorial is part of who we are. And that is on the ballot. That's one question that's on the ballot. What else is on the ballot? We also have Smith & Wollensky Restaurant. For those of you who don't know, the city of Miami Beach leases Smith & Wollensky leases this waterfront property. It's 0.56 acres. They lease it to Smith & Wollensky, and this is kind of ratifying the new lease. And it talks about the fact that Smith & Wollensky will be doing a minimum of $3,300,000 in upgrades. There's a certain percentage of rent guarantee. So Smith & Wollensky pays the city of Miami Beach, in case you do not know this, $11,680,000 per decade. So about $1 million per year. So they're paying, less. I would say about $100,000 per month, a little bit less than that. They're going to do free restaurant mentorship seminars. I don't know what that means, but I should ask and find out. And parks security gate installation. And that's a question mark. So I guess that this question is, do you like Smith & Wollensky there? If you like it, you're going to vote yes. If you don't like Smith & Wollensky, you will vote no. What else do we have on here? Oh, I'm going to say the most controversial one till last. Okay, ballot question. Here's another ballot question. This is a non-binding straw ballot question. It's to urge the legislature 1% tax for homeless assistance domestic violence center. Would you support the city commission adopting a resolution urging the Florida legislature to amend section 212.0306 to allow for collection of 1% tax on food and beverage sales for consumption on premises in the city of Miami Beach, which would not apply to hotels and motels, in order to assist homeless persons and those at risk of homelessness? And this is 1% tax further on our restaurants, 1% tax on the residents. I'm voting no on this extra tax. It has nothing to do. The Homeless Trust already has $60 million a year. I think that we already contribute a significant amount of that money. I do not see why we need to collect 1% more tax on food and beverage sales in the city of Miami Beach. I think Miami Beach is already a donor community. And while I would love to fund homeless and domestic violence center, Miami Beach is already giving a lot of funding. And I don't really think that Miami Beach needs to be taxed any further. So it'll be interesting to see if that passes or not. And then the final ballot question. Okay. And by the way, these ballot questions, they're non-binding. So if it doesn't become law. Like the Smith & Wollensky lease, yes, it's ratified. And that lease would last for 2045. That is a long lease. That is, I guess that's a typical lease, plus renewal options. Okay, so Smith & Wollensky is getting a very long lease. So if you disagree with that, but most of us love Smith & Wollensky, so probably going to vote for that. And the Holocaust Memorial referendum is just for the parking and the education. That's not very controversial, I don't think. The final item on the ballot, which is ballot question number 1, which is the campaign that everybody in Miami Beach is seeing, is the non-binding straw ballot question citywide, changing alcoholic beverage establishments sales and consumption termination time. So this is very interesting, because what this means is that the city is just taking a poll. The outcome of this will not become law because it is a straw ballot. So this will never become law. And it says, city law allows, subject to exemptions, the sale and consumption of alcohol beverages at alcohol beverage establishments throughout the city from 8 a.m. until 5 a.m. Would you support changing the 5 a.m. termination time to 2 a.m. throughout the city, with specific locations and related restrictions and exceptions to be determined by city commission ordinance? Now, this is very interesting because it is very vague. We don't know what specific locations and related restrictions and exceptions means. This basically means that they can change the hours of alcohol operations, or at least get a poll saying that they can. And then if they get a poll, I think that this was already voted on by the electorate at 5 a.m. And I believe that the nightclubs and people who have 5 a.m., when the mayor tried to reduce it to 2 a.m., they took him to court and won. So I'm assuming that whatever the outcome of this ballot question is, they can take this to a judge and say, hey, I know that we had a 5 a.m. referendum, but the outcome of this referendum will definitely, this is what the electorate currently wants. Now, how do I feel about this? I kind of feel like certain establishments that operate in large hotels and have their own security and are inside don't really pose any problem to the city of Miami Beach. I do, however, think that some of our operators in Miami Beach are not the best operators. And it's going to be interesting to see the outcome of this ballot question. And I know that there are so many differing opinions. But this ballot question is set up for failure because it's not just 2 a.m. in the MXC. It's 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. citywide. So it would shut everything down citywide. So I'm sure if I was a nightclub operator right now, anywhere like Live at the Fontainebleau, I would be panicking a little bit. So I can understand why there is a campaign for no. I can understand why people would say yes, 2 a.m. if I was living in the area. It's going to be very interesting to see how people do vote, because I think that whatever the outcome of that vote is the way that the law will read. I personally love the Palace and Twist, and I believe that we shouldn't kill some of the most gay, iconic LGBTQ nightclubs. I also know that people travel from around the world to go to Mangoes. And I understand that that's a destination place. And if Mangoes wants to operate until 5 a.m., I understand that too. Now, there's a lot of people out there, apart from these like legacy businesses, that are just causing a problem. And you can see that on Yelp when you look at the reviews. So we're all going to have to work together. It's going to be interesting to see. There are many candidates running for office. I believe there were 17, but 2 dropped out. They're dropping like flies. Just remember to vote. The absentee ballots are hitting next week, October 4th and 5th. So remember to vote starting next week. Early voting starts on October 18th. I myself am on the ballot in Group 1. I'm very excited to be running again for the Miami Beach Commission. And I'm not using this show right now to campaign, although you do have me on the logo as candidate for Miami Beach Commissioner. So now I'm going to have to put like an in-kind donation from the community newspapers, because I'm going to follow all the rules. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. And I agree, Cynthia. Cynthia writes, the writing of the 2 a.m. law is too broad. It is too broad. We don't understand what the exceptions are. Smith and Walensky, Rick Kendall writes, but the lease violates the county charter parks amendments. I'm voting no. Okay, that's interesting. I love Smith and Walensky, Rick. It's hard to vote against my favorite place for a Cosmo. Okay, let's see what else. Hello, Mark and Kristen. George Martinez in the house. Community newspapers. Tanya Dean. It is very suspicious that Areola and Richardson are so against a community property thriving. That is suspicious, Tanya. Finally, George Gonzalez. Hope that theater doesn't turn into... I hope so, too. The Coconut Grove Theater Playhouse is also wasting away there. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for commenting. And stay tuned, because next week we will be with you at 1:30 p.m., 2 p.m. Kristen Rosen Gonzalez on the community newspapers. Thank you very much.